Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our live stream for this week. Let's begin with a bow. Might be nice if I put on my mic. So this week we're going to continue with our practice and our discussion of the awakening heart. And I'd like to begin with a practice session. So take your customary meditation seat, whether it's on a cushion, on the floor, or sitting in a chair, or sitting on a meditation bench. And then we're going to begin with 12 breaths into the lower belly. And just to remind you, this is a practice that brings us very quickly into our bodies. And in the Tibetan tradition, it's said to purify the system, the energetic system and the awareness system of rampant discursive thinking. And when we do it, it does in fact somewhat set aside our thinking process and help us be much more present to the non-conceptual experience of our human life. Okay, so for those of you who don't know the practice, we're going to take a medium to full breath into the lower belly, and then we're going to empty out the lower belly very, very fully, breathing out, breathing out, breathing out. Both the inhale and the exhale are slow and steady. The inhale is relaxed and the outbreath is very vigorous. So to set up the practice, let's just sit in meditation posture. Feel the back line, feel your spine. Have your awareness toward the back of your body. And then begin to breathe into the lower belly. And we're going to just do this gently. We're not doing the practice yet. We're just getting a sense of where the lower belly is and keeping our attention in that area on both the in-breath and the out-breath. So breathing into the lower belly, picking a point midway between the perineum and the navel and a little bit toward the back of the body. If you're too far forward, it's not going to feel natural. If you're far enough back in the lower belly where you're breathing, it'll feel natural and open. So see if you can find that. And see if you can feel the sensation of the inner breath as it enters the lower belly on the in-breath. It's a feeling of freshness, a feeling of kind of open. And then we'll do our lower belly breathing. We're going to do 12 lower belly breaths, or one set. Okay, so medium to full in-breath into the lower belly, and then emptying out and squeezing the lower belly down to nothing, emptying out absolutely all the stale energy or prana or chi, all the way down to nothing. And then another in-breath, and then emptying out again. And we'll do 12 of those. Okay, so you can begin, and I'll keep track. You should just keep going until I bring the practice to a close. You don't need to count. Okay, so please begin. On the out-breath, you can close the anal sphincter and pull up on the perineum. And then let's all do one together. Medium to full in-breath and breathing out. And at the end of the out-breath, keep breathing out. Keep tightening down even though you've already tightened down to nothing. And then hold the breath out for a few seconds. Okay, so one more together. And then just breathe naturally. And notice your spine, notice the back line, notice the central channel. After doing this practice, it's much more natural to keep your awareness there. Notice also the space along the back line is very vivid, it's very alive, and there's a subtle upflow of awareness. Along the back margin of the body. Just see if you can notice that. And notice at the same time the same kind of electric energy, the same kind of sort of flowing, almost liquid space is going on in your limbs too. It's in your central channel, it's in your torso, it's in your limbs. There's a vibrant, vivid, living quality to the awareness that is flowing there. See if you can feel that. Okay, let's do one more set of 12 breaths into the lower belly. This time your lower belly is warm and the nadis, the energy pathways are quite open. So we'll be able to take this a little bit further and empty out any residual impurities that are in our system. Okay, so please begin. At the end of each out-breath, you can hold the breath out just for a few seconds before you breathe in. And at that time, you can experience the stillness of the body when you're not breathing. And then once again, let's do a breath all together. End of the out-breath, keep breathing out, and then hold the breath out until it becomes uncomfortable. Okay, one more breath. And then just breathe naturally. And feel once again the energy flowing in your system. The body is right now completely open. We're touching what we call the primordial soma, the natural state of the body, which is measureless awareness. And we can feel it. This is the important point. We can feel the space in our body. We're not looking at it. We're feeling it. We are in it. We are it. And we also feel the aliveness of the space, the electric quality flowing through our energy pathways, the electric space, the liquid space. And notice that what impresses us is not the emptiness, it's the quality of the emptiness, the energy of awareness. And notice how steady it is. the natural state, the immeasurable expanse of our primordial soma, the immeasurable awareness of our basic being, of course, is incredibly steady by virtue of its openness and limitlessness and capacity to include everything. But the energy of awareness, this energetic demeanor, the electric quality of the awareness flowing through our veins is also incredibly steady. This is the life force itself, which is born from the emptiness. And this life force is what becomes our life. It becomes our experience. So then we're going to come to, very briefly, we're coming to our lower belly once again, and feel the energy of awareness in the lower belly. Each of our centers, the lower belly, the navel, the heart, the throat, and the head, the energy of awareness, the life force, manifests in a slightly different way and performs a slightly different function in our human experience. So when we breathe into the lower belly, which is our default practice, when we do sitting meditation, when we do shikantaza, we breathe into the lower belly. And what the lower belly is about is the isness and reality of the world that we live in moment by moment. When we breathe into the lower belly, it heightens our sense of the givenness of our life. Ordinarily, when things happen, say, as what happened this morning, we walked into the room where the dog slept, and he had left a huge poop, diarrhea, in fact, unfortunately, all over the place. And the normal response would be freaking out and being pissed off at the dog and getting into an argument about who's going to clean up the poop. The lower belly approach is that somehow at that moment the poop is taken as an absolute reality, in the sense that here it is, it happened, and our whole life begins from right here, from this situation. And then we can see about it. We can see about the dog, we can see about the poop, we can see about what are we going to do about this really nice rug. But normally in life, we actually don't touch base with the facticity of our life, with the givenness, the isness of it. We are, almost before we even experience it, we react to it. And a lot of things, in particular, that happen that are very much inconsistent with our expectations, we freak out in different ways. When we breathe into the lower belly, we're working with the life force directly. And we are able to experience the givenness of our world in a completely non-judgmental and non-reactive way. It's very, 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 very powerful practice, even if you normally tend to be quite an ungrounded person and you tend not to be present to your world, and you tend to be a little spaced out, you tend to be a little too reactive, and you're not actually making contact with your world. The lower belly is the way to go. It helps us experience the immovability, the implacability, the intensity of the world that we meet moment by moment in a way that is completely non-judgmental, because the lower belly is non-judgmental and non-reactive. You just don't react. Your partner comes in and is just really fired up about something or other that she thought of, maybe from a few weeks ago, and you're in your pajamas and hardly awake, and your partner's yelling at you, and somehow the mind goes into a state of stillness and receptivity and curiosity, and there's no reactivity. There's not even any response initially. The world is simply received on its own terms. So that's the way the lower belly, that's the way the life energy, the life force, expresses itself in the lower belly. It's a certain kind of wisdom. It's one of the wisdoms of the awakened state. And then we come to the navel. If we breathe into the navel, we begin to contact the more of the rich, earthy, loamy quality of our life. The sensual quality, sensual in the sense of sensing our life and sensing into the richness and the warmth and the abundance and the living, breathing quality of our life. So it's not quite as primordial as the way we meet the world in our lower belly. It's a little more differentiated and a little more on the human scale. It's said that the blissfulness of experience, just ordinary experience, drinking water and having food and breathing and feeling the earth under us and feeling the warmth of someone snuggling us, these are very what are called, sometimes people call them the earthly pleasures. And the lower belly is all about that. And, it's interesting in the Vajrayana that we don't have, pleasure is actually a very sacred and very beautiful thing. And experiencing the comforts of life is part of what nourishes our soul. So what we're doing here is we are noticing the way in which the ordinary world feeds us and nourishes us and supports us and helps us grow and really brings our soul to life. And then in the heart, which is what we're working with this part of our live stream course from now for a few months, the heart is, the life force manifests in the heart as we've been discussing, in the sensitivity to the interconnections that we have with everything, how interconnected we are. When we do the bodhicitta practices, the awakening the heart practices in programs, one of the things that happens is, very quickly, we begin to uncover the tremendous interconnectedness we all have as people, and particularly people in that particular meditation room in that program. And there is a sense of a very profound, very moving, very affecting intimacy, even with people we don't really like, people we've had problems with. In all of these somatic practices, what we're doing is we're dropping underneath the storyline, we're dropping underneath the interpretation that we each have. And in the case of the heart, we are connecting with a primordial state of our own being, the way the life force is manifesting in us, and it's independent of whatever the ego happens to think or anticipate or fear. So when we breathe into the heart and when we begin to tap into the wisdom, the particular wisdom quality of the heart, there the life force is manifesting as warmth, as a sense of a blissful appreciation and connection, as loving kindness, compassion, and as love. Then when we work with the throat, we are, as we've discussed before, we are working with, again, a very unique way in which the life force, which is born from emptiness of our body, the way that life force manifests is very uniquely is in the urge, the impulse, the inspiration to express, to sing, to dance, to move, to speak, to kiss, to express the enormous feeling of being alive and being human that comes from the lower belly and the navel and the heart. And then in the head, toward the top of the head, the life force manifests as, it's like the sky. Again, I think we've talked about this. It's the feeling of an all-embracing awareness that literally, in a sense, looks down upon and holds the totality of our being in love. It doesn't have a particular strong color the way the other aspects do, but it, particularly the navel, the heart, and the throat. But it's a sort of overarching sense of holding, of containing what it means, what our life means to be human. So when we do the bodhicitta practice of the heart, the awakening heart, we're working with one of these 5 dimensions of human experience, particularly the one related to love and to connection. So at this point, we're going to do one more set of 12-fold lower belly breathing, and then we're going to work directly with the heart for a little bit. So let's once again come down to our lower belly, and then we'll do 12 breaths into the lower belly. So please begin. And then we'll do one more all together, and again at the end of the out-breath, hold the breath out for a little bit. Okay, so one more. And then you can breathe naturally. Once again, feeling the flow of the chi, the prana, the life force in your veins, in your energy pathways. And then we'll come to the heart. So bringing our attention right to our heart center, right here. And beginning to breathe into it slowly, gently. And just feeling what's going on there. Especially looking for any tightness or tension, any frozenness, any armoring. And breathing into it, try to inhabit it from the inside. And soften it from the inside of the tension. As you do so, pay attention to the muscles around your heart center, especially in the upper chest, on either side, and the fascia that surrounds, because that's going to hold tension also. And as we open our heart energetically, we need to be relaxing the soft tissue, releasing the tension in the cartilage and the bones, and opening our physical being as well around the heart. And then once again, we can use the 1,000-petal lotus visualization. So imagine there's a lotus in your heart that's closed, and with each in-breath, a petal opens, which is another little piece of armor, and it falls away. And step by step, we're opening this lotus, starting from the outside and working toward the middle. And just taking our time, letting the heart open step by step. And not being afraid to feel how hard our heart may be right now. It could be hard as rock. That's okay. Just trying to feel the actual situation and use the visualization to begin to soften it and open it. And then beginning to get down to the very, very center of the lotus and opening those petals. And then noticing in that very center is just empty space. The primordial level of the heart. It's like when we say, I felt very empty-hearted. We don't mean there was no feeling, but we mean that the heart was so maybe devastated and so exhausted that we just feel empty, open space. But even the emptiness of the heart, there's a warmth, there's a kind of softness to that empty, almost desolate feeling. So that's what we're opening to now, is the basic primordial space at the very center of the heart. So in each breath, imagine that you're opening this little pool of space open a little bit more, each in-breath. And then noticing the tingling quality of that space. It's scintillating, it's tingling, it's, as I think I said last week, it's like a trillion fireflies. The space is alive and it's has a kind of warm, even slightly burning quality to it, and slightly blissful. Meantime, it's empty, but that's how the emptiness is in the heart. And then breathing into it, we can intensify that warmth. And we can begin to extend it out. And we can begin to extend it even beyond our body. It's a burning space for extending in all directions. It's warm, and it's very passionate in a kind of somatic way. There's a lot of longing, a lot of yearning, a lot of caring, but nonverbal. It's just the quality of the space itself. See if you can feel that as you breathe into the heart and intensify the burning space there. So this burning space is about the others, all the others in our world. It's not about any one thing. It's how the heart feels towards the totality. And it's a very somatic feeling. It's a burning toward, a yearning toward. See if you can feel that, breathing and intensifying the field of the heart space. And then letting that same heart space fill our whole body. So the whole body is feeling that sense of toward the others, toward outside, toward extending in a kind of unspeakable love. Okay, very good. So we are step by step, week by week, exploring the very unique qualities of our human heart, and one of the most refined and beautiful aspects of the awakened soma is the heart. What the heart knows, what the heart requires of us. So for your homework, I'd like you to really just work on breathing into the heart and exploring the feeling of the space of the heart, and then opening that out. And as always, begin with 12-4 lower belly breathing to get you into your body, and then come to the heart and work with the heart directly, breathing into it, feeling the tension, releasing tension, maybe working with that for a long time. 1,000-petal lotus, open the lotus, connect with the space, and then connect with the unique warmth of awareness that is at the center of our heart. And next week we'll take it another step forward. So at this point I'd like to invite Elizabeth to come over and sit with me. Hi Elizabeth.
Hi Reggie.
How's your week been?
To use your word, the past few weeks of the facticity of my life has required a lot of small but pretty constant surrenders.
Yeah.
And relating to the absolute reality of it and trying to trust it.
Yeah.
Because everything in me is like, no, it's not supposed to be that way. So it's been interesting.
A week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people are going through some very tough times. A lot of people that, yourself and other people that I'm close to, and the dog pooping on the rug was just the latest incident, in our life. I mean, it's just like all over the place.
Mm-hmm. I've been trying to trust it. For example, I really wanted to attend your consort weekend, which I've heard from many was really beautiful, you and Caroline.
Yeah, we missed you.
Yeah, I've been excited about that for a long time.
Yeah.
And multiple situations arose. My child got very sick and very contagious, and then I got sick, and just childcare and all these things came up, and it just became so clear that there was every obstacle possible. I was not going.
Not going to happen, right?
And I felt so much longing and sadness and sense of like, it's not supposed to be this way. And I guess something I've learned in our lineage is the protection principle, and that you have that I learned to receive that as love, that for some reason, even though everything in me is saying this isn't right, that there's something beautiful happening, there's some blessing in there, there's some, that it's all love coming at me, whether it feels good or not, and to trust it as it's knocking down all of my constructs.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there, and that's okay.
But you're here.
I'm here. I'm very glad to be
That's
here.
the good news.
Yeah, trustworthy.
How are things looking tonight, question-wise?
Yeah, we have some questions about the heart practice, so I thought I'd start with those.
Good, yeah.
Francis in New York. As I have engaged the heart practice these last few weeks, the initial numbness and closeness has given way to a more spacious and tender quality. During practice this week, however, a strong energy and space is arising through the lower belly and up through the solar plexus to meet and engage with the heart. This energy feels open and liberating. There's also some anger, lust, and sexual associations for me, and it seems to overpower and become entangled with the gentle and tender qualities of the heart. Is this the ego distracting me from direct experience of heart opening? It doesn't completely feel like that's true. Or is it a natural arising as a result of this practice?
Well, that's a good point, that when we do this heart opening practice, as you know, it is there's an openness, the feeling of tenderness, feeling of connection, and it's also an invitation. It's an invitation to all of the parts of our own life and our own experience that we have turned our back on. And so, as we've discussed before, the heart practice initially might lead to a real sense of the coherence of the heart and of entrainment with others and of regulation, and then it leads to dysregulation, and there can be a lot of chaos that comes up, but the chaos that comes up, it's the life force itself, and it's just showing us that it's much bigger than what we were thinking, and the heart practice makes room for it and really invites it, and it's often about relationships, because that's the heart's thing, is our connections with other people, our attachments, as they say in psychology. So the fact that anger and sexual feelings and, it could be fear of others, paranoia, that's all part of the process of working with the heart. And I really want to emphasize that the deeper we go into the heart, the more room we're making for what needs to surface. And, we should not be dismayed if a lot of things come up, particularly with the heart practice that have to do with other people and the way in which we relate to them and how we are with the people we love, and all of those issues of interrelationship are going to surface and need the aeration of our awareness, to resolve themselves. Mm-hmm. So I don't see a problem here at all.
Mm-hmm. This is coming into something I've thought about for a long time. I want to ask you in this theme. Once when someone was talking about how sometimes spiritual teachers can have quite a bit of awakening or awareness, but there's still a lot of delusion or constriction going on, and you see them end up sexual stuff or money stuff, etc. And this person described it as they can have, a lot of openness that happens here or here, but there's still a lot of constriction in other chakras or other energy centers in the body, and that those manifest because they're being kind of floated above for some period of time.
Yeah.
And just hearing you say that, it's almost a sense of like those lower energies, they're coming up into the openness of the heart and getting to release and open, and that keeps us in our integrity and perhaps protects from that situation happening.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even if you think about the practice we just did, sometimes our concept of spirituality is that the eventfulness of our life that has a certain monolithic quality to it. If you're breathing into the lower belly, things happen, and it's what things are. It's how things are. When the Buddha said we have to see things as they are, he was talking about that. He's talking about ordinary life. A lot of times we use spirituality as a way, like you said, to float above and not to connect. And if we float above in that way, we're going to be bouncing our checkbooks, and we're going to be taking too many loans out on our big spiritual buildings, and we're not going to be relating to the earth, and that's a problem. It's a huge problem. Likewise with the interrelationship with other people, if we haven't really truly opened our heart, we've opened our, maybe this part, the upstairs part, we've opened that up, but we haven't really opened up our heart, then we don't see, and we get taken over, and we sit in front of a student, and, with teachers and students, as there's a very deep feeling of falling in love with one another. And, what's going on there is each one of us is seeing the primordial sacredness of the other person, but if the heart isn't truly open, then that gets hijacked into a sexual relationship because, the spiritual teacher wants to possess that person in a certain kind of way, and vice versa. So, that's why in the Vajrayana you have to work with what, is called the lower centers. They're not really lower, they're just more related to the earth. You have to work with those, or it's not going to work out. You're going to get hijacked by whatever it is, your impracticality or your unresolved sexual issues. Many of us use our teaching as a way to satisfy unfulfilled emotional needs. You find a lot of spiritual teachers actually don't know how to be truly intimate with other people, and spiritual teaching becomes a sort of substitute way to get emotional gratification and feel connected to people. Meantime, we can't relate in our daily life in a truly intimate way. This is a big problem, and it's going to trip us up. There's no escape, from karma.
Yeah.
So it's really quite fascinating, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess we'll come upon the other heart practice here. This question is from Nicole in Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting with grief several months after my mother's passing.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself entering into the permanency of her absence from my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cycling through stages of absolute desolation and depression, numbness, moments of free-flowing emotion and love, and moments of feeling quite open and at peace. I catch myself creating all kinds of entertaining distractions, as well as trying to reconstruct some sense of self. I feel everything I previously thought I knew about myself falling away. Do you have any suggestions for those of us experiencing this cycle of falling apart and attempting to recollect, falling apart again, etc.?
Well, one thing I do want to say, I wouldn't make the assumption that your mother is permanently gone, as you say. This whole question of, we think that when people are physically with us, they're with us, and when they're not physically with us, they're not with us. And I think if we look deeply into the matter, Cynthia Bourgeault has written about this. If you look her up on the internet, she's written about love beyond death. If we look deeply into this matter, we find out that often when we are with people, people we love, people we're very attached to, such as a parent, much of the time we're actually not with them, and they're not with us. It's like a vacant hole, much of the time, even though we overlay it with this very sort of heavy, thing that we do, that's very solid. And at the same time, when someone dies that we love very much, I don't think we can assume they're not there. They may be, I feel with Trungpa Rinpoche, to whom I was very, 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 very attached and felt very, very close. in many ways, I found out after he died that he was closer to me, less graspable, yes, but closer than when he was alive. And I think we have to be open to that possibility. I think if we create a story where, my mother was here and now my mother's absolutely gone, we're going to be mourning our idea rather than relating to the actual reality, which might be much more subtle, much more impermanent, much more changeable, and there might be much more availability of her in your space. It's, what I'm talking about is not that unusual an experience. A lot of people, particularly practitioners, do feel that, and I would invite you to explore it and see. Maybe she's not so absent, actually.
Jason asks, what do you recommend in the way of off-the-cushion practices?
I think that in the context of what we're doing right now, the important point when we're living our life is to stay home in our bodies and to resist the temptation to exit. For example, I talked about the dog pooping on the rug and taking that as the sort of ground, for the next moment of life. I think if we're willing to relate to our daily life that way, that each situation that happens is a kind of ground for us, and we're willing to be present to it and let go of our reactivity and our judgment, then those events become inspiration for us. And that, that's what Vajrayana practice is. It's taking the unexpected as the basis. It's taking the groundless ground as the foundation of our life. And when you do that, then situations are much more interesting. They provoke your curiosity, much more surprising, much more unprecedented, and frankly much more sacred. And you, at that point, if you take that approach, willing to be in your soma and willing to take each event in your life, particularly the ones that completely blow your preconceptions, as your starting point, then your whole life actually becomes a journey, and your whole life is a learning process. So, the way I see it is sitting on one's cushion is preparing ourselves for this process. The real journey happens in everyday life, but we have to be prepared so that we don't relate to everyday life with habitual patterns and reactivity and going up into our thinking mind. So that's where practice comes in. But the cushion practice is the preliminary, and then the actual life is the actual life.
On retreat with the heart practices you've had us do, where we open the heart, and then on the break you've encouraged us to, see from the heart, or
yes, yeah.
perceive others from the heart, hear from the heart, just living as that's the information center. That's a nice one.
Well, it's also, you're talking about really the basic heart practice, which hopefully in the next few weeks we'll get to it, but very much so, as we conduct our life, the heart has a certain particular way of looking at it. We need to tap into it and not, get caught up here in what we think. So that's well said. Thank you. Yeah.
Soul in Australia. I'm struggling at the moment to establish a practice again with a wonderful toddler rushing around. For the first year, I still got up extra early. Now I have laxed and am suffering the consequences of not practicing. I took the time for granted before becoming a father. Any tips? Stronger coffee?
Well, what would you say? I mean, you're certainly in the middle of that approach.
Well, I want to hear your answer, because I don't have any answers. It's a journey. I could say a few things, but I'd love to hear what your suggestions are.
Well, I think always coming back, particularly with small children. It's 71 degrees today in Boulder, and the air is filled with pollen, which in February is ridiculous, but anyway, it's happening. I think always coming back to the heart, always coming back to the trying to feel the connection with the toddler. That's the core practice. That's not like some kind of watered down thing. That is the practice, is bringing an open heart to every situation. And the great thing about toddlers is there are a million moments when you want to shut down and you want to control. And there's a difference between holding and managing and controlling. So by coming back to the heart, we can hold them and we can kind of manage the space around them. And meantime, we have the opportunity to open. I mean, every time we close, we have an opportunity to open. So I think, you tell me, but I think with toddlers, it goes on all day long. And like you said, you have to surrender every single moment. That's practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you feel that?
I do.
Yeah.
I notice, in all honesty, I notice that sitting practice helps me do that much better. And so that's the dance I'm in is, and I've told you about this, my husband and I both noticed, though, if we really prioritize an hour each in the morning, we don't connect very much, and we're kind of passing the baby back and forth. And so this journey of finding a balance, what's helpful and what ends up being not helpful.
Yeah.
We did do a 5-day home retreat with our child over Christmas, and we each did a half day, so each practiced
Really?
about 5 hours.
Really?
And it was amazing. I was shocked to just half a day how deep I could drop in, and it was so restorative, and it really reconnected both of us to our practice, and it was great.
That's really, really great.
That's the blessing of having a partner who's a practitioner and supportive of that. So everybody's got a different situation, but
and was your experience of family life different?
Yeah.
How did it shift for you?
Gentler.
Yeah.
More connected.
Yeah.
More spacious.
Mm-hmm.
And my time with her was, because I treated that as retreat as well.
Yeah.
It was really, really sweet to not be trying to answer emails or whatever while I'm being with her.
Yeah.
So it's a precious time.
And I'm sure for her it was amazing experience for her. She must have loved it to have both of you, really, completely able to be 100% with her.
Yeah. I wish it could be like that all the time. I aspire to that. But.
I mean, that's really is such a hard thing about the world we live in. Even if you're able to, stay home with your baby, it doesn't really solve the problem entirely because of, like you said, the emails and the calls and all the things you have to do just to even manage a household now. All the distractions. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I didn't know about that. That's great to hear. Yeah.
I wish you well, soul. It's a journey. Alex in Niwot. Sometimes I'm not sure whether I'm sitting with discomfort and unresolved karma as it arises, or if I'm just thinking about painful experiences and perpetuating them with continuous thought. I don't want to push anything away, but I think I might be holding on to feelings that are painful, thinking that I need to feel the pain and discomfort so that it can resolve itself. It often seems to just intensify. How do I know if I should stick with something so that it can unwind, or if I should let it go so I'm not holding on to something painful and causing more pain?
Well, both of those are the ego is trying to manage the situation. And what we're talking about here is we are talking about being in the body and seeing what the body has to say and seeing what the body's feelings are and sticking with it. Not getting caught into, his thing is whole strategy. Do I do this? Do I do that? If I do this, will this happen? If I do that, will that happen? We're talking about dropping under that whole process. Just drop under it and see what's going on in the body and just stay with it. Stay with the process. And no matter what the process is, stay with it. Yeah. That's not hanging on. The body doesn't hang on to anything. As you know, when you do these practices, the body is constantly in flux, constantly in motion, and there's always movement, there's always fluidity. And our thing is to stay with that and not have a lot of preconceptions about what it's supposed to look like or what we're supposed to be feeling. So that'd be my recommendation, just get into the body. And if you really get caught in your mind, do yin breathing. Breathe into the lower belly, lie down, and stay there until you come back down.
Okay. Julia in Irvington. When sitting in the practice of pure awareness and abiding in the back line, I feel a perceptual bias to feel the right side more. When I gently pull my awareness into the midline, it feels like a place I've rarely been. It sometimes feels cross-eyed, so to speak. I wonder if I'm trying too hard. Is this what you mean by developing neurological capacity?
I would explore, if she feels pulled to the right, I would be exploring the left.
Mm.
They tell you when you're rehabilitating, let's say you have an injury on your left side, you have to do a little bit more work with your left side in terms of awareness, in terms of waking it up, in terms of developing. It's sort of like the right side is a person, but the left side isn't a person. It didn't become a person. It hasn't fully evolved. So you have to put a little more attention into it. That's how. And what you do is this is physically we're talking about. You do develop eventually a balance by emphasizing the non-dominant side. And I would say that works here too, for sure. That to pay attention more to the left side and see what happens, rather than trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can draw any interpretations or conclusions from those kinds of experiences, except that we have a bias in one direction, and so we need to kind of pay attention to the other and see what happens. Because the body itself actually wants balance. If we're biased to the right side, it's because we have an attitude about the left side, most likely. Yeah.
Rodrigo in Mexico. When I was younger, I had several episodes of migraines. I've been very nervous since I was a child, and this nervousness was in great part the cause for those. Lately, I've noticed that a great amount of mistrust towards my body is present, even though I haven't had an episode of migraine for years. But the fear is there, and also a sense of hatred towards the anxiety and towards the pain. I feel I can't relax completely, and that if I relax, something bad is going to happen. How can I work with this? I see this a lot. I see this a lot.
You see it a lot in your work. What do you tell people?
It depends on the situation. Often that guardedness is protecting something, and so to approach it with a lot of kindness and curiosity. Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, my guess would be that underneath the nervousness, there's something, some kind of sorrow, some kind of wound, some kind of pain, and the nervousness is sort of almost a protection against having to feel it. I think this is a very hard lesson. It's something you hear a lot from psychologists and trauma workers and body workers and healers, such as yourself, that when you get right down to it, most of the symptoms we have they're camouflage for something that's underneath, and what's underneath is going to be painful. It's going to be vulnerability. It's going to be a sense of maybe even helplessness that we've had ever since we've been little, a sense of despair, whatever it may be. And there's really no way around experiencing that. We're going to have to meet the prisoners that are in the deep dungeons of our own psyche and meet them and welcome them and befriend them and listen to them. And, there are many gates in, but the process ends up always coming down to pretty much the same thing: is what is the pain, what is the wound, what is the deep sorrow that the nervousness is about. And working with the body, is the most direct way to do it, to find out what that is. So that would be also my suggestion.
Doris asks, sometimes when a lot of intensity is built up in my body due to the tension I feel in group situations where psychological work is being done, my body will just take over and manifest very dramatic movements and sometimes loud noises. And it feels very deep and real because it is just happening outside of my volition. I witness it. The people I am with don't understand it, and because it's scary and I don't feel supported. Please tell me what you think of this sort of phenomena. I wish so much to be in a safe environment where I can really deeply let my body unfold.
Well, I think a safe environment is actually important, and it's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you find yourself in an environment where deep psychological work is supposed to be happening, but you yourself don't feel safe in that environment, I would question whether that's really the best environment for you. I mean, is there another environment where you can somatically, viscerally feel safe and feel supported? Because if you don't, if you have an ongoing underlying anxiety or fear, you're not, one is not able to open up in those situations. So I would look into it. Maybe a one-on-one situation might be better. Some people, many people actually don't do that well in group situations because of exactly how you're feeling. They feel that way too because of their own history and their own, feelings about relating to others, in group situations. So I'd look into it. And I would trust, your body's telling you there's a problem here, and I would really be listening to that.
Nira in Maryland. Since the live streams began, I have been in a lot of pain, partly because of the program and partly due to personal circumstances. Once when Elizabeth was reading an email, I was overwhelmed by pain. But that pain felt different than usual. I realized that it wasn't mine, but the pain of the person who wrote the email. I also felt the comfort and bliss of discovering that we are all connected. Would you expand on this?
Well, a lot of times we don't know where the pain that we feel is coming from. Is it coming from me? Is it coming from another? Is it coming from something happened a long time ago? Is it something that's going on now? We are always looking for interpretations, and we're always looking to kind of pin things down and figure them out. And a lot of time we can't do that. And a more likely approach is to, when you're feeling pain, to ask your body what's going on here. And, what is this? Pain always comes with a message of some kind. And we need to, rather than trying to figure out, where it's coming from or what it means, we need to actually ask our body what's going on and what is the, what is it that I'm not quite understanding here, and see what the body says. Because when you truly ask your own soma for clarification of something, it comes through. It will come through, and it might not be right now. It might be in a dream tonight or whatever. But again, I would shift the emphasis away from trying to figure things out to just being with and listening and seeing and allowing and seeing what comes through to you. And as you said, as you said before, that's why the practice of meditation is so very important, because it creates an environment of settledness and openness toward our body, and it develops our capacity to hear what the body's saying. And then we go through our day and we can, we can learn, we can hear.
I notice for myself, I get quite, it's subtle sometimes and it seems sophisticated, but the desire to know where it's coming from is avoiding just feeling it.
Yes, that's good. That's
and
really
I catch
good.
it and I do it a million different ways. But
yeah, that's really, really
sitting
helpful.
with it, it's just the pure energetic of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the bare feeling is, it's not really connected with anything. I mean, in other words, the bare feeling itself is a full and complete statement, and that's what we don't want to relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is the last question we have.
Mm-hmm.
It's from Andras in Eastern Europe. Dogen said life or practice is a continuous mistake, and the Dzogchen talks about the great perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a contradiction here, or how do the shortcomings or mishaps and the sacredness of the unfolding life connect to each other? It seems the deeper beauty of inspiration in this world most of the time dies away or gets contaminated in the process of manifesting itself. How can we work with this tendency?
Well, I think there's also a saying in Taoism, which I love, which is that imperfection is the stock in trade of the perfect person. In other words, I find it rather wonderful and humorous and joyful that the ego can never get it right. You know, that we're always slipping on banana peels. And what happens when we slip on a banana peel, or when we make a mistake and we realize it, is at that moment the ego just stops. And there's this huge space of reality. And when we look down at this struggling little human life of ours, making the mistake, slipping on banana peels, embroiled in imperfection, when we look down at it from the viewpoint of eternity, which is our deepest nature, we see something extraordinarily beautiful and absolutely miraculous and sacred. And, that's again why making a connection with the natural state and learning to be, learning what it means to surrender into the unborn aspect of our own nature is the ground of everything, because from that viewpoint, life can be whatever it wants to, and however bizarre, human beings are totally bizarre, and we're all contradictory, and we make mistakes, and we're so confused. And from the viewpoint of eternity, that's an extraordinarily blessed and beautiful and sacred situation. Very good. Well, thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Always nice to see you.
You too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And we'll keep going. And again, thank you to everybody for joining us. And we'll see you next week.
I have a few announcements, if you don't mind. Do you want
do you?
Do you mind?
We'll do your announcements and then we'll bow. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay.
So Reggie's going to be in the Bay Area March 3rd through the 5th, Thursday to Saturday. There's a workshop on March 3rd, the Trauma as Spiritual Practice, the Role of Pure Awareness. Reggie's also giving a keynote talk at CIIS on March 4th at 7 p.m. And then he's presenting at the Non-Dual Conference on March 5th. So we won't be doing the live stream on March 4th. But we'll be back together the rest of the weeks, I think.
We should be back together. What else? Also, I believe on Monday night of that week, which is going to be around March 6th or so, we're having a Sangha gathering for people who are Dharma Ocean members and friends.
Great.
That will be in the Bay Area, and that should be on the website. And Tuesday night, I will be doing an evening at Anab Tupten's place, the Dharmata Foundation, and I don't know if it's on their website, but it should be on our website. We should put it up pretty soon. So that'll be, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting being back in the Bay Area and doing all these different things. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah, there's some great people there in our Sangha. Yeah, nice.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. See you next week.